Good evening. Welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the south. Daring leaves to take on Daesh. Family farewells dockside as a Royal Navy destroyer heads to the Middle East.
Are you on the so-called suckers list? A scam mail warning tonight from a 91-year-old who lost her life savings.
The true cost of going back to school, the rising price for parents at the start of the new school term.
And heavens above, things are looking up in Sussex at one of the world's oldest observatories. Good evening. The crew of HMS Daring set sail for the Middle East today to help in the fight against terrorism. Crowds gathered in Portsmouth to wave goodbye. They'll be away from loved ones for 9 months.
On a previous mission to the Gulf, the destroyer suffered a mechanical fault and had to have emergency repairs to her engine. Today, her captain said he was confident she'd be able to operate without any problems. Richard Jones has the story.
Stores were going aboard Daring almost until the minute she sailed. For old hands, this is routine, but it's a new experience for many younger sailors on their first deployment overseas.
I'm nervous, but I'm quite excited at the same time. We've done a lot of work to get to this point.
It's going to be a great training opportunity for me, and I joined the Navy to see the world. That's what I'm going to go and do.
I think a lot of them are nervous and they don't really know what to expect because they've not spent that long away from home before.
It's going to be tough. I'm going to miss the whole of the school year pretty much, and almost the whole of my 7-year-old's football season as well.
Daring has various jobs during her 9 months in the Middle East. She'll be supporting the international fight against so-called Islamic State, tackling piracy and carrying out operations against drugs and arms smuggling.
Predominantly carrier protection, so looking after the carrier, as the Americans call it, riding shotgun for their CVNs, their nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, but also providing intelligence information for the aircraft that are flying from that aircraft carrier. So with the sensors and radars we have in Daring, we can work to give them an air picture out to about 300 miles.
She's the Navy's oldest Type 45, and all have had much publicised technical problems with their engines, especially in the heat of the Gulf.
We've been operating in the Gulf now with the destroyers for about the last 6 to 8 years, so we've got a good bank of experience of the best way to operate these ships to keep them going and keep on the operational front line.
Hundreds of people gathered in Old Portsmouth to wave goodbye to loved ones, including the family of sailor Amy Hanlon.
I know my mum's going to be crying her eyes out and I'm not going to be there to give her a hug, but I'm a strong one. She's strong. She'll be fine.
The hardest thing for me is not being able to talk to her, so it'll be hard. Longest time she's ever been away from home, so.
I know that it's good for what she's going out for, but it's going to be weird not having her around and not being able to speak to her.
Soon the time for a final goodbye came as Daring sailed out of Portsmouth. She won't be back again until the spring. If all goes to plan, HMS Daring will have a break over Christmas, and many of her crew will be allowed home to spend some time with their families. Richard Jones, ITV News, Portsmouth.
In other news, a man has been arrested for a second time by police investigating the murder of 19-year-old woman in Sussex. The body of Shana Grice was found at her home in Mile Oak near Portslade last Thursday. A 27-year-old man who was arrested and bailed last week is once again assisting police with their inquiries.
A pensioner charged in connection with a 40-hour standoff with armed police at Pagham near Bognor Regis has appeared before Crawley magistrates. Terry Bridger, who's 72 and from Harbour Road, has been charged with threats to kill, possession of a firearm, common assault and threatening to damage property. He has been remanded in custody to appear at Portsmouth Crown Court.
The RMT union has condemned the profits announced today by Go Ahead, the parent company of Southern Railways. Its latest profits of £147 million were mainly from its bus operations. But critics and unions say it should be stripped of its rail franchise because of continued disruption for passengers.
I think the passengers and our members equally be extremely angry and disgusted at what's going on here. You know, almost £100 million worth of profits, a franchise that's failing. services that are poor, and yet, you know, for a fraction of the cost, we could end up with having guarantees about safety critical guard on every train, and then the dispute we've got with the company.
Are you on a so-called suckers list? Well, thousands of people are, and it costs one pensioner her savings of £35,000. A suckers list is a database of vulnerable people who fraudsters believe are likely to fall for scams.
91-year-old Yvonne Richards from Waterlooville ended up on one after buying a £20 blender advertised in a magazine. Kerry Swain has more.
Please reply to me today, as I am very certain that I can help you within a very short time to achieve a win.
91-year-old Yvonne Richards receives around 40 letters like this every week. Widowed, lonely, she has responded to many of these scams.
Well, I just can't help it because the letters are persuasive, and there was a lump of sum of money that you've won this, or the first 3 people get so and so, and I'd rush and get somebody to post my letters.
It's called mass marketing fraud, unsolicited mailings, emails or phone calls. Yvonne sent money for 2 years to a man claiming to be a clairvoyant.
And I was horrified when the Trading Standards Officer told me that there was no such person as Morgan T. Afterwards you think, well, whatever was I so silly?
From analysis of the victims we know about, the average age is 75. So there are clearly people out there targeting our most elderly members of society.
Yvonne ended up on a so-called suckers list after buying a kitchen blender advertised in a magazine. The National Trading Standards Scams team want legislation to prevent companies from sharing personal data and for mass marketing fraud to be given more status as an organised crime. Too late for Yvonne, who, since her husband's death 8 years ago, has lost £35,000 savings. Kerry Swain, ITV News.
The first female dean of Winchester Cathedral has been appointed by the Diocese of Winchester. The Very Reverend Catherine Ogle takes up the post after the retirement earlier this year, the Very Reverend James Atwell.
I'm very proud to be the first woman dean of Winchester, but you know what? I just want to be a really good dean. I think that's important. And it delights me that women and men are now serving alongside each other as priests and deans and bishops in the Church of England.
A local lottery with a £25,000 weekly prize has been launched by Portsmouth City Council. A third party will operate the Pompey Lottery. Tickets are £1 and 60% of the proceeds will go to local charities and good causes. Organisations are being encouraged to bid for the funding.
You're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Coming up.
The tiny insect that's a big danger to you and your dog. But what's the best way of safely removing a tick? We'll tell you.
For more on all of our stories, head to itv.com/Meridian. Any views or news, please do give us a call or get in touch via Facebook, or you can always give us a tweet.
Caroline Lucas, the MP for Brighton Pavilion, has been elected leader of the Green Party.
It'll be her second spell in charge, but this time there's a difference. From the Green Party conference in Birmingham, Phil Hornby reports.
The Greens have a new sense of confidence these days. Ideas once dismissed by some as cranky are becoming mainstream. People who were once grateful to be just taking part in the political debate are now determined to win. They came here to Birmingham to elect a new leader who they hope can cash in on the green surge they had at the time of the last election. Lots of new members, but just one Member of Parliament, and she was the hot favourite to become leader for the second time.
Tell me, who are Budgers voting for in the party leadership?
I think they would vote for Caroline.
Who's going to win?
I'm not sure, but
Who do you want to win?
Caroline Lucas.
You know, she's just got this quiet, steady, powerful voice.
I haven't found anybody yet who hasn't voted for Caroline Lucas. Do you know anyone who hasn't voted for her?
I'm not sure I do. She's a very, very popular choice.
So the result when it came was no surprise, but this time she'll have a co-leader. She and Jonathan Bartley will job share.
A job share because it's a way of demonstrating very visibly that we want to do politics differently. For example, if you look at the House of Commons, you could hardly look at those green benches and say that the people there reflect modern Britain. We want to demonstrate that politics should be more open to more people. A job share enables Jonathan to be able to be part of this job share. He has a disabled son, so it's harder for him to be able to give 24 hours a day. And we've got a bigger point here about saying that the MPs should be able to job share too. It's a way of ensuring you get much greater diversity and equality in Parliament and probably better politics as a result.
Their first big decision, whether the Greens should work in alliance with other parties, including maybe Jeremy Corbyn's Labour, to take on the Tories.
It's one of 4 party leadership contests in this crazy political summer. Theresa May's already won one, of course. In 2 weeks' time, it'll be UKIP, with the South East MEP Diane James one of the front runners. And a week after that, it'll be Labour's turn. But today belongs to the MP for Brighton Pavilion and the man she'll be doing a job share with. Phil Hornby, ITV News, Birmingham.
Now, most schools go back next week, and for thousands of parents, that means forking out on a child's new school uniform.
With shoes, stationery and other essentials, research suggests it costs on average over £180 to kit a child out. Well, at the Oaklands Catholic School in Waterlooville, a complete school uniform is almost £100, with the blazer costing £35. At the Oxford Spires Academy, parents can spend up to £82.50 for a full uniform. And if your child goes to a private school, then the cost goes up. Just a blazer at Brighton College will set you back more than £90. And at Eton, a blazer costs an eye-watering £120.
Education bosses say school clothes should be affordable for all. Well, here's Matt Price.
And your skirt fits?
Yeah. Yes, it fits, but for how long and at what cost? For Emma Pryor, it's an expensive time of the year, kitting her 3 children out for 3 different schools.
Perfect. Yeah, lovely.
Uniforms for Thomas, Poppy and Scarlett run into hundreds of pounds a year.
I'm not very good at budgeting, so it's a case of I pay for it and I just find the money. I suppose it has an effect the following month where you're thinking, well, I've just spent £300-400 on uniform, but I suppose in a way you can think, well, at least it's not till next term, hopefully, that we have to start buying fresh.
A study shows on average that parents will spend over £180 on kit for the new school year. They'll fork out just over £31 on school clothes alone, and 1 in 4 admit to using credit cards to fund the cost. A report last year by the Children's Society claimed the cost of school uniform is often far-reaching. It said some parents were having to cut back on basics such as food to make ends meet.
We don't want children going to school being bullied because their parents can't afford a new school uniform every year. That isn't what school is for, and children are really suffering as a result.
There may be a supermarket price war when it comes to uniform. Of the big 4, the cheapest school jumper with no logo that we could find was £1.50. But the cost can rise if school branded items are bought. David Burgess speaks for the uniform industry. It's his view that schools are right to be specific about what their students wear.
If a school says you can buy any navy blue sweatshirt, then some will buy a top brand sweatshirt and some will buy from a cheap supermarket.
But does that matter if it's a navy blue sweatshirt?
It does matter. It matters very much, because if they've only got just the one, then they all feel the same.
The Department for Education have issued guidance on uniform pricing. They've told ITV News that no family should be at a disadvantage because of the price of a school uniform, and that they should keep costs to a minimum and be affordable for everyone.
A rewear tie, perfectly good condition.
One community project is helping parents to save cash. Caroline's preparing to move her market stall swap shop into new premises on the high street. Parents can trade in old uniform or buy pre-owned items.
Every parent wants to put their child in a new school uniform, and what we're saying is that there is another choice of being able to do that. You can buy an item brand new, and you can mix and match that with rewear stuff.
I want you to look after them.
Back at home, Emma surely deserves full marks for effort. By shopping around and being money savvy, she's doing all she can to make sure her 3 have the right clothes for school. Matt Price, ITV News.
Well, thanks for all your views on this. Let's start with Laura Cruz from Winchester. Laura says every parent knows that they have to buy school uniform. So if the costs are too high, save up for it throughout the year.
Sarah Thompson from Brighton says, I think it's ridiculous that any school states you have to have the logo on school clothing. I'm lucky as I only have one child left at school.
Margaret McQuire Hall from Aldershot has to get uniforms from specialist suppliers and says, I think it's all wrong that you can't go to a high street shop and buy cheaper clothes as uniform.
Thank you to all who got in touch. Now, if you have a dog, then there's a warning tonight about ticks. The biggest study of its kind has found almost a third of dogs could be carrying them.
Well, ticks can carry a range of diseases, including Lyme disease. It's a bacterial infection spread to humans by infected ticks, with up to 3,000 new cases diagnosed every year. The initial reaction is a rash or flu-like symptoms, but it can later develop with limb pain, problems with the nervous system, heart problems and memory loss.
Earlier, I spoke to wildlife expert and New Forest resident Chris Packham, who's leading the campaign. Chris Packham, thanks for joining us. A third of dogs potentially carrying ticks. That's a shocking number, isn't it?
The Big Tick Project has revealed that ticks are occurring all over the UK, from the north of Scotland all the way down to the southwest and southeast, and all of the dogs that were sampled were drawn together for analysis at Bristol University, and nearly a third of them were carrying ticks. This is very shocking indeed. You know, it shows that owners are simply not aware of the threat that these animals present in their environment, and it's something that we need to address.
So are ticks on the increase, and why?
Ticks are on the increase in the UK, and it simply comes down to climate change. They're surviving better throughout the course of the winter. There's not the cold weather to kill them off that there used to be. They're emerging earlier in spring. They're active for longer. They've got a prolonged breeding season. And as a consequence of all of these things, in all of the environments where they live, we're seeing an increase in the density of ticks.
Chris, what do you think is the best way to remove a tick?
The best way to remove a tick is as quickly as possible, because the longer they're biting, the greater the risk of disease transmission. So if you find one on yourself or your dog, do take it off as quickly as possible. You can try and use tweezers, but if you do, try to ensure that you remove the head of the animal as well, because if it's left behind, there's a risk of infection. Better still, go to the pharmacist or to your vet and get a special tick removal tool. You simply apply it to the tick, you twist it, and invariably that does remove the head. So for a few pence, that's the best solution.
Chris Packham, thank you very much indeed, and your four-legged friends as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sport time now with Kerry. And Kerry, it's been a busy week for our football clubs.
It certainly has been, you're quite correct. The region's football clubs have been reflecting on the transfer window, which closed in the week. Well, Brighton manager Chris Hughton says the arrival of 5 new first-team players, including Belgian international Sébastien Pocognoli, means he's pleased with the business his club has done.
Well, I'm delighted with what we've been able to do in this period of time. I did say that come the end of the window, that whatever the situation was, I know we would have worked as hard as possible. But as long as I can be pleased with the squad going into this first part of the season, then I would be pleased, and I am.
Well, Swindon are away at Peterborough tomorrow in the 12:15 kick-off in League One. Oxford are at home to Rochdale, while Portsmouth and Crawley face each other at Fratton Park in League Two. Pompey boosted by the arrival of defender Dominic Hyam on loan from Reading. Now, 2 Southampton legends have launched a new management company to help young footballers. Matt Letitia and Francis Benali spoke to the media at Matt's local golf course. The company, called 7-3 Management, is named after the numbers they famously wore on the pitch. They say a lot has changed there over the years.
Back in our day, you kind of got a chance to get into the first team a lot younger than you do these days. There wasn't quite so much foreign talent around, there wasn't quite so much money for the clubs to go out and splash on the players for their squads. So the younger guys tended to get a chance a little bit quicker. So our first bit of advice would be just be a little bit patient and don't expect to be in the first team at 17 or 18 years of age like myself and Fran were.
A legend indeed. Well, rugby now, and the new championship season begins for London Irish tomorrow at the Madejski Stadium. The squad had a photo shoot ahead of the clash against last year's beaten playoff finalists, Doncaster Knights. Captain Shane Geraghty says the team needs to get off to a good start.
For us, having them at home, it's a big start, and I'm sure all eyes will be on that game to see how we get on. For us, it's just about building each game in pre-season, and obviously our focus is all eyes on Doncaster.
Well, now the Paralympics gets underway in Rio next Wednesday, of course, but tonight thousands will gather at the birthplace of Paralympic sport. That's Stoke Mandeville in Buckinghamshire. Rachel Hepworth has more.
This is the first time Rowan Norman from Maidenhead has ever tried archery. Clearly a natural, the 14-year-old is in a wheelchair following an accident. It knocked her confidence until now.
Sport is a really good way of building this up, because after I've had all this fun on this, I'm feeling a lot more, wow, there's a lot of things I can actually get into.
She's one of hundreds taking part in today's Paralympic Carnival. Among the coaches, Di Coates from Yateley in Hampshire, who's won 8 shooting medals in 8 Paralympics. She's seen huge changes in the way disability sport is viewed.
More exposure now, people can see that we do actually have to train just the same as the able-bodied. We're not just coming along and having a go as it was seen when I first started.
It was arguably London 2012 that was the game changer for Paralympic sport. And 4 years on, the momentum remains. At the Stoke Mandeville Stadium, they're making final preparations for tonight's ceremony. In just over an hour, the Heritage Flame will be lit here before starting its journey to Rio in the opening ceremony next week. And it couldn't be more fitting that its journey is starting here. Because Stoke Mandeville is where the Paralympic movement started its life, the brainchild of neurosurgeon Dr. Ludwig Gutmann. He advocated sports therapy and created the first Stoke Mandeville Games in 1948. 16 people took part then. In Rio, more than 4,000. Today's event is hoping to inspire lots more youngsters who idolise their Paralympic heroes.
They should be proud of themselves in every single way. They're doing amazing, and I hope they win and come first place.
Rachel Hepworth, ITV News at Stoke Mandeville.
And a quick mention of some spectacular powerboat action, no less, this Saturday and Sunday on the water. Bournemouth is the venue really, hosting the final heat of the Grand Prix of the Sea, I should say. The championship winning team will be crowned on Sunday afternoon. Bournemouth's very own Norval brothers will be competing on both days. Yes, some daredevil action there. That's your sport.
Thank you very much indeed. Plenty to look forward to, Kerry.
Indeed.
Thank you,
Great stuff. So, stargazers are flocking to Sussex for a special astronomy festival this weekend. It's being staged at the Observatory Science Centre.
Well, as well as tours of the historic telescopes, visitors will be able to hear from space experts, including a scientist from NASA. Here's Malcolm Shaw.
Wow, you have the power.
This giant telescope was built more than 100 years ago, but remains one of the largest of its type in the world. Today it's housed at the Observatory Science Centre in Hurstmont Zoo, the venue for a special festival this weekend, celebrating everything astronomical.
We wanted to bring astronomy really back to the public, and to do this we thought we'd do a festival, a whole weekend, where the car park is changed into a camping field, and turn it into the atmosphere is just absolutely incredible, and it's got better and better as the years go on.
And there's a stellar lineup of speakers this year, among them Chris Jacobs, a scientist from the American space agency NASA. He travels the world synchronizing radio telescopes so they work together as one giant instrument.
With this power, we can pinpoint things in the sky and use it to navigate to places like Mars. We need to get the positions of galaxies out to about 9 decimal places in order to navigate to Mars. Our last Mars landing, we had to get in between a mountain and a crater rim. And $2.5 billion is on the line, and don't hit the crater rim and don't hit the mountain.
The Astronomy Festival is now in its 12th year and regularly draws visitors of all ages.
It's very good. It's good for the kids. There's lots of information going on.
The Discovery Park?
She likes the Discovery Park.
We've been coming here for about 10 years. I think we came to the second festival, in fact.
The copper domes of Hurstmont Zoo have been an unlikely landmark for almost 70 years. The Royal Observatory moved here from Greenwich when London's smoky air and bright lights made it impossible to study faint objects in the night sky. At its peak, over 200 people worked here at the Hurstmont Zoo Observatory, and staff were on duty every night to use the telescopes, if the sky was clear enough. And that's something stargazers will be hoping for this weekend too. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Hurstmont Zoo.
Yeah, the big question is though, what will the skies be like this weekend for stargazers and for seagulls? Philippa Drew.
Yes, a bit of a mixed bag of weather this weekend. I gather seagulls prefer good weather, as we will see shortly. But first, let's take a look at some of our other feathered friends that our lovely viewers have been sending in. So the first one, Mark Tuffin sent in this robin making itself at home in his garden. I'm very excited to see this. September is not too early to be thinking about Christmas. Next up, we've got a heart-melting picture from Roy Venkatesh. A swoose here, a cross between a swan and a goose, no less. Rare to see, very rare to photograph. And then this beautiful day at Brighton Beach, taken by Tara. Blue sky, blue sea, lovely ice cream, and then what happens? Mr. Seagull comes in for a bit of in-flight refreshment, and trauma ensues. Yes, not good. What do you reckon to that?
Well, what I reckon is that I can't resist a flake, and that's clearly what the bird was thinking. Philippa, thank you very much. So, what does the weather have in store? With all the details, here's Philippa Drew.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe, Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
So thanks firstly to Les Adams for this beautiful picture taken in Warfield in Berkshire of sweet corn growing there. Blue skies here, but not quite so promising over the weekend, and we can see just why. Saturday's pressure chart shows low pressure sweeping its way eastwards, the associated fronts bringing a spell of rain. But it's not all bad news. For Sunday, high pressure builds back in again to give a much drier and brighter day. Back to you tonight, it's all looking fairly quiet. Any remnants of today's thicker cloud and rain clearing away eastwards, and behind it clear spells developing. Into tomorrow morning, things starting on a promising note, some good dry weather, some good sunny spells, but as the morning wears on, thickening cloud will start to move in from the west, spreading its way eastwards through the afternoon, introducing rain to all parts. Some of that rain could well be persistent, and some heavy bursts possible as well. A quick look at the high tides for tomorrow, then you can see for Portland there around 9 in the morning and again just past 9 in the evening. But don't despair, as I said, rain tomorrow, but thereafter things are looking better. Sunday eventually bringing some good sunny spells, and that sunshine taking us well into the new week, warming up again as well.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
In just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Alistair Stewart and Ranveer Singh.
And Stacey Poole will have our late news at 10:25 this evening. For now, though, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on Monday. Have a fabulous weekend. Bye-bye.
Have a great one. Bye-bye.